If you're in a place where it is appropriate and comfortable for you to do so, go ahead and close your eyes and begin to take some slow, deep, relaxing breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. With every inhale, feel more peace and light entering your body and mind. And with every exhale, let go of all tension and anything you do not want. With each inhale, feeling more light and peace entering your body and mind. And with each exhale, feel more tension leaving. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, lighting us and the grove up with a sacred golden light. This is the light of perfect love and perfect trust that easily and instantly burns away everything that is not like itself. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves as a god and goddess. We also, into this sacred space, invite the presence of our guides, our teachers, our angels. We dedicate this time that we spend together to each other and to them, and we ask that we be guided and led as we walk upon the way, becoming happier, more peaceful, more prosperous, more healthy, and more loving people. Thank you very much. And if it's appropriate for you to do so out loud, you can join me in saying, "Blessed be." I'm going to revisit the topic of secrecy in magic today. The topic came up on the Discord server, and I think it's a wonderful thing to talk about. Let's talk about secrecy as what it is for us, and that is a magical tool. Yeah, it's a magical tool, just like your athame is a magical tool, your cord's a magical tool, your chalice is a magical tool, your thuribal's a magical tool, your altar's a magical tool. The power of visualization is a magical tool. The power of incantation is a magical tool. The power of invocation is a magical tool. And the power of secrecy is a magical tool. Secrecy is one of the most powerful magical tools. And what you've noticed probably in your own life, or many people will notice, is that sometimes secrecy can be misused. There's a saying that you are only as sick as your secrets. And the reason that this is so is because it is such a powerful magical tool. So if you have shame attached to something that you're keeping secret, what you are indeed doing is empowering that shame. So if you have shame-based secrets, or what we sometimes call sick secrets, you are actually trying to empower them, because what we make secret, we attempt to make sacred. So if you are ashamed of something that you're keeping secret, in other words, if you're afraid that if somebody were to find out about your secret, that you would feel very ashamed, then that tells you that that kind of a secret is probably not the best kind of secret to keep. Now, that's not to say that you should go out and tell everybody about your shame-based secret, but you should find someone to tell it to, because the action of letting go of a secret, confessing a secret to somebody like a therapist or a good friend, takes the charge off of it. It's like it pops the balloon. And so then that secret begins to lose power in your life. So one of the first things a good therapist will have you do is to divulge your sick secrets, not because they're trying to find out some juicy gossip about you, but because they know that when you do that, that you are disempowering that thought form. But just like a sick secret can create a very sick thought form for you, so can a wonderful secret create a very powerful and wonderful thought form for you. If you're working on a spell, for instance, and you want perhaps a new business, if you do the right kind of magic on that new business and build a thought form for that new business, and that new business is at least somewhat within your sphere of influence, then you're going to start to build a lot of very positive power within that thought form, and it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. What you're doing, in essence, is building a double on the astral plane of that which you would like to see manifest. And as that power builds and builds and builds, it must manifest into reality. It's just how magic works. It's just the way things are. And so our skills of building thought forms are so important when it comes to magic, at least practical magic, so that we can start to experience in physical form that which we are building in the astral. Now, if you start to talk to everybody about what you're doing, it's like trying to pump air into a tire that has a leak, because you've already given a form of manifestation to your spell through talking. And so it's not going to build up more power to manifest any other way, because you've already given expression to it through talking. And the more you talk, the less power you're building in that thought form. The more you're blabbing about it, the more you're going to be losing power. And so a lot of times that's the thing that kills the magic faster than anything else, is that we're talking about what we're doing, we're talking about our spell, we're talking about our goal, we're talking about the things that we're trying to create. And instead, we want to learn how to make those into a secret. And since it's not a shame-based secret, we're not going to worry if our secret gets blown, that we're going to feel ashamed about our business. In fact, what we want to do is keep it a secret so that it becomes evident when it does manifest. The secret will be shared with the whole world as the manifestation. But if we share that secret too early, then that manifestation has a very difficult time manifesting or happening. If you think in terms of practical magic, secrecy is one of those 4 cornerstones of the witch's pyramid. We have faith, we have imagination, we have will, and we have secrecy. And those things, all 4 of those things must be in balance in order to have any kind of magic work. And you can't just do it as a triad. You can't just do faith, imagination, and will. You got to have the secrecy in there. You got to learn how to keep your mouth shut. And that used to be where I would slip up the most, I think, when I was a youngster in all of this, especially with my colleagues in the craft or other fellow students that, well, I'm doing a spell on blah, 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 blah. And then I wouldn't get very good manifestations. And finally, my teacher said, you keep talking about your spells. Why do you do that? You know better. We've taught you not to talk. And she said, I'd be very surprised if any of your spells have any real power, because you talk about them all the time. And lo and behold, she was right. So I learned how to keep my mouth shut about the stuff that I was excited about the stuff that I really was enthusiastic about. And see, when you are super enthusiastic and excited about something and you just really want to tell people, but you don't, you can see how that starts to build and build and build and build. It's like building pressure. And then it explodes into manifestation. It must explode into manifestation. And when it explodes into manifestation, you don't have to worry about it keeping a secret anymore, because everybody sees it. So like that business, you launch that business and it comes out and everybody's like, oh, I didn't know you were working on a business. You're working on a business. Wow. Look at that. It's really happening. So you don't have to tell anybody. Your manifestation will tell everybody. It's going to be there for everybody to see. And the manifestation itself will shout from the hilltops. The manifestation itself will shout from the hilltops to everybody, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And you never have to worry about telling people, because it will be obvious. So you can blab your way into failure. The power of secrecy is not only for practical magic, though. The power of secrecy also helps you in regards to anything sacred. Remember how there's a quote in the New Testament about not casting your pearls before swine? Well, that's an ancient quote that probably came from ancient magi that were eventually distilled into the teachings of Jesus. But regardless of the source, it's a very wise quote. Don't cast your pearls before swine, meaning not everybody has to know about everything you're doing, because for one thing, they won't understand, and they may take it and turn it into something gross. They may ridicule it. They may decimate it in front of you. And nobody needs that. Nobody needs that. When you're trying to have something sacred in your life, you want to keep it private or speak only of it to a very select few people. Because when we start to tell everybody about our sacred secrets, then they become anything but sacred. They lose all power. They lose all value to us. A lot of times what happens with social media these days is everybody is oversharing so much that there's no more sacred secrets. They have no sacred secrets anymore. You learn way too much about everybody on social media. And I don't judge people for that, but I do have some compassion thinking, if you just think twice before hitting that button where you share that on your social media, you might actually start having a different experience in your personal life rather than living your life so publicly on social media. You're not giving yourself a chance sometimes because you're oversharing with every single person that might be looking. I think this and I think that and I did this and I did that and I ate this and I went here and I did this thing and I did those things. It's not that it's bad. It's just that it's casting your pearls before swine. You have no sacredness in your life because you're sharing everything with everybody all the time. Now, that is not an accident. It's not an accident that we are in a place in society now where everybody is encouraged to overshare. That is not an accident. That is a very conspiratorial thing that the ego is doing. We are all conspiring together to destroy our sacredness. And one of the ways that we're doing that is through this oversharing medium, learning how to destroy and decimate our sacred secrets by oversharing with everybody. Well, I do this and I do that and I did this and I did that, whether it be magical or not. Then everybody else has an idea in the group mind of what they think that means. And so then you're not only dealing with your own thought forms, you're dealing with everybody else's perception of what you're doing. So you're dealing with their thought forms too. And rarely do they get the right perception of what's going on. Or they have a judgment against you, or they think something about you, and then that adds to your inability to have thought forms remain pure and sacred. So give yourself a break. Try it. Try maybe for 2 or 3 weeks even. Just saying, I'm not going to share anything about my personal life with anybody. Just for a few weeks. I'm just going to keep things to myself. I'm going to, if there's a sick secret that I need to share, I'm going to share it with a good friend or a therapist to get the charge off of it. And everything else in my life, I'm going to keep it to myself. I'm going to keep private. And I'm just going to see and notice how much more energy I have. I'm going to just see and notice if I have more energy, if I have more focus, if I have more power to make things happen, because I'm not oversharing. I'm not telling everybody on my feeds what I think or what I'm doing, what I'm eating, where I'm going, how I'm living. I'm just going to come back into secrecy, sacred secrecy, not sick secrecy, but sacred secrecy. All the secrets that we keep are the kind that if somebody were to find out about it, they would be in awe of you. They would be like, oh, I didn't know that. Wow, that's so cool. Right? Or at least you feel that way about those secrets. If somebody found out about it, it's like, oh shoot, I wasn't ready to tell anybody that. But isn't that neat? Right? You're not worried about them finding out something about you and saying, oh no, now what do they think of me? Because you don't feel bad about the secrets that you're keeping. You don't feel bad about those secrets that you're keeping. You're keeping those secrets out of a sense of empowerment. You're wanting to make them sacred. You're wanting to share them only with infinite intelligence. Now, one more thing about magical secrets that is very important before we end this talk, and that is, if you're a student of magic, of course you're going to need to share what you're doing with a teacher or with colleagues. There is a place for that. There is a place for saying, well, how do I do this? And what do you think this is the best thing for this? And what do you think the best way of handling that is? And and troubleshooting and creating and optimizing your magic, you do need to share your goals with teachers and colleagues. And that's why in our groups on our Discord server and our Facebook groups and things like that, we ask people to keep our secrets for us, to not share outside of the group, so that we have a safe space to help each other to create operations or troubleshoot operations and spells. So it's okay to allow yourself to get some help as you're learning how to do magic, because it can be very challenging to be successful in the craft that we're in. I mean, it's an art and a science. So there's a lot to learn. So it's okay to share and to divulge your secrets, like I say, with teachers and with colleagues in order to get better at your craft. That's not the same as just going around and blabbing about what it is that you're doing. But even with that, you don't want to overdo that either. You want to get the help that you need and then just stop the conversation, because you really do need to fill up that thought form with power and power and power and power so that it explodes into manifestation. And you can't get that explosion if you're blabbing, because it's like I said, that's like a leak in the tire. Have you ever done that where you've had a tire that's got a hole in it and you say, well, I got to put some air in my tire, but the more you put the air in the tire, the more it leaks out. And that's exactly the image that I like for secrecy. You want to patch up those leaks by keeping your mouth shut. It's the way you patch up a leak is to shut your mouth, because that's where the leak comes from. And I don't want you to feel bad about yourself if you're a blabber. I mean, like I said, I'm a blabber too. And that was one of the most challenging things for me to understand when I was coming up in the craft. But I do want you to have success in your magic. And one of the ways that you can have success in your magic is to learn the power of secrecy as a magical tool. So many of the occult secrets that we share sometimes are secrets because of the kinds of opinions that the world has about the craft and about occultism. You know, a lot of times people think, oh, you're involved with witchcraft, you must be a devil worshiper, or oh, you're involved with the occult, you must, sacrifice babies and things like that. And that's another reason sometimes for secrecy. It's not so much that we are ashamed of what we do. It's just that it's easier for us to not have to try to explain what we do to people that don't really want to know the truth, right? People don't want to know the truth about what you do. They want to reinforce their own beliefs about what you do because they have no idea what you do. So it's a good idea to keep them out of the loop most of the time. I don't have time or energy to constantly justify myself to people. So it's better if I just keep them out of the loop. They don't need to know what I'm doing. It's none of their business what I'm doing. It's so important to not have to justify yourself or to defend yourself. That's talk about a leak. So one of the best ways to put yourself into a position to not always have to justify yourself and defend yourself is to not include those people in the conversation to begin with. So that's why I don't wear craft jewelry. I don't have craft things around my house. I'm not saying that you can't. Of course you can. But it's just easier for me to keep all of that very private. And that doesn't mean that I'm ashamed of it. If somebody were to find out about it, I wouldn't be like, oh no, I'm so ashamed. I'd just deal with it. I just have to deal with it. But it's so much easier if I don't put it out there, because then I'm not taking so much of my time and energy defending and explaining and justifying. It's really none of their business. I don't need to include them into what I'm doing. Just like I don't need to include them in my sex life. I don't need to include them in my home. I don't need to include people in any part of my private life, but especially not my magic, especially not my craft, because that's the most sacred thing to me. And so the more secret it is, the more sacred it is. And so there's very few people in my personal life, believe it or not, that know what I do. I just don't include them. No, like I said, if they find out, they find out. It's fine. But I don't bring them into the conversation. So that's another part of the secrecy too, is that everybody's different. And I'm not saying that you should, quote, be in the broom closet. I'm not saying that at all. If you like wearing your pentagrams, if you like being out there, that is fine. But just realize that you don't need to be and that there's nothing wrong with it. I see people a lot of times saying, no, you must take pagan pride and you got to go out there and you don't hide your craft from anybody because you should be proud. Excuse me, but that's none of your business. I don't need pride in my craft. My craft is sacred. It comes to me straight from source. I and source are very secure in my craft. I have no shame attached to my craft, but I don't need to include anybody else in my craft. It's none of their business. And if I wanted to, I could, but it's not up to anybody else to tell me that I need to be, quote, out. And neither is it for you. You don't have to feel compelled to share your craft with anybody unless you want to. But always be really clear about that before you do it, because once you share it, you can't unshare it. So make sure that you're only bringing people into that you really want into that. Again, that's up to you and your personality style. Some people just like being out witches, and that's fine. You can do that. I totally support that, but you don't have to be that way. And there is definitely some wisdom in keeping things secret. That's why sometimes when you are initiated into certain craft traditions, they tell you to keep your involvement secret. One of the reasons why they do that isn't only so much so that you don't divulge the secrets of that group, but it's also by association. You don't divulge other people's involvement in that group. Right? So if you're hanging out with your best friend and you both happen to be in the same coven or something like that, and you decide that you're going to be out, well, everybody's just going to assume that your best friend's involved with that too. And that's not up to you to share. So you got to be careful. You really do. You have to be careful whose craft you share. And if you're sharing your own craft, sometimes by association, you are sharing other people's craft as well. So think carefully and considerably before you decide to share about the craft, before you share about your magic for practical purposes and also for sacred purposes. And also to help other people to keep it private if they desire to do so. So secrecy is a magical tool. It's a powerful tool, and one that I hope that you learn how to experiment with and use. And it's nothing to be used to promote shame or sickness. It's to be used in order to go forward with your magic with more power and more effectiveness. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. I appreciate you very much. Until next time, blessed be.